German tankers laughed at American Shermans until 50,000 of them rolled into Germany. 1944–1945. German crews called them Ronsons, after the lighter company's slogan, "Lights first time, every time," because American M4 Shermans caught fire so easily. German Tigers could kill Shermans from over a mile away, while Sherman shells bounced off Tiger armor. A single 88mm hit turned a Sherman into a burning coffin for its 5-man crew. Yet by May 1945, it was German armor that lay in ruins across Europe, buried under an avalanche of American steel. This is the story of how 50,000 inferior tanks defeated the best armored force in the world.
July 17, 1944. Villers-Bocage, France. SS Obersturmführer Michael Wittmann, Germany's most decorated tank ace, with 138 confirmed kills, watched through his Tiger's periscope as a column of American M4 Shermans rolled into view. His gunner, Balthasar Wohl, actually laughed. "Hauptsturmführer, they've sent us more targets. Look at them, like milk trucks pretending to be panzers." Wittmann didn't smile. He'd destroyed dozens of British Shermans at Villers-Bocage weeks earlier, single-handedly stopping an entire armored brigade. But something about the American column bothered him. There were so many of them, stretching back beyond the ridge, disappearing into the summer haze. "How many?" Wohl asked. Wittmann counted silently. 20 visible, maybe more behind them. His Tiger carried only 92 rounds of 88mm ammunition. The mathematics were troubling. What Wittmann didn't know, what no German tanker truly understood in July 1944, was that he was witnessing the leading edge of an industrial tsunami. Behind those 20 Shermans were 500 more in the division. Behind that division were 15 others. Behind those divisions, American factories were completing one Sherman every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Tiger was superior in every technical measure. Thicker armor, more powerful gun, better optics. But America wasn't fighting a technical war. They were fighting an industrial one. And in that war, the Germans had already lost. This is the story of American tank crews who rode into battle in machines they called death traps and Ronsons, knowing they were outgunned and out-armored. Men who watched their friends burn to death in tanks that caught fire from a single hit. Crews who faced German Tigers and Panthers that could destroy them from ranges where they couldn't fight back. Yet these men climbed into their Shermans every morning. They developed tactics that turned disadvantage into victory. They used speed, coordination, and overwhelming numbers to defeat technically superior enemies. And by May 1945, they'd buried German armor under 50,000 tons of American steel. The technical comparison was brutal. A German Tiger I weighed 54 tons, carried armor up to 4 inches thick, and mounted an 88mm gun that could penetrate 6 inches of armor at 1,000 yards. The Panther, considered by many the best tank of the war, had brilliantly sloped armor, a powerful 75mm gun, and excellent mobility.
The American M4 Sherman weighed 30 tons, had armor barely 3 inches thick at best, and carried a 75mm gun that couldn't penetrate Tiger or Panther frontal armor even at point-blank range. A Sherman shell hitting a Tiger's front armor would bounce off like a tennis ball. Worse, the Sherman's greatest weakness was known to every crew member who climbed inside. Early Shermans ran on gasoline and stored ammunition in racks along the hull sides. When a German anti-tank round penetrated, and it almost always penetrated, the tank brewed up. That's what crews called it when their Sherman caught fire. The statistics were horrifying. In Normandy, the average Sherman's combat lifespan was measured in days, sometimes hours. Some battalions lost 580% of their authorized tank strength. meaning each tank position was filled and refilled 6 times as replacements arrived to fill dead men's seats. Corporal William McVeigh from Illinois served as a loader in a Sherman throughout the campaign in France. His first tank lasted 4 days before a Panzer IV shell penetrated the turret, killing the gunner instantly and setting the ammunition on fire. McVeigh escaped through the loader's hatch with burns covering his arms. "I was back in a new tank the next morning," he later recalled in an interview preserved at the Armored Forces Museum. "Different tank, same job, same odds. You didn't think about it. If you thought about the statistics, you'd never climb in, so you just didn't think." The German tankers weren't subtle about their advantage. In July 1944, after a battle near Caen, American forces found a message chalked on a destroyed Panther. 88 Shermans destroyed. How many Panthers can you destroy, Tommy? The answer, statistically, was not many. In a one-on-one engagement at typical combat ranges, a Sherman had less than a 20% chance of destroying a Tiger or Panther before being destroyed itself. German tankers knew it. American tankers knew it. The mathematics of armor penetration didn't lie. But wars aren't won by mathematics alone. Staff Sergeant Lafayette Poole from Texas served as a Sherman named In the Mood with the 3rd Armored Division. Poole understood something that German tankers, with their focus on technical superiority, had missed entirely. The Germans had better tanks, Poole explained after the war, by which time he'd destroyed 12 enemy tanks and become one of America's top tank aces. The Germans had better tanks. One-on-one, they'd win every time. But we never fought one-on-one. We fought 5-on-1, 10-on-1, whatever it took.
The American doctrine was simple and brutal. Use numbers to create angles. While one Sherman engaged a German tank from the front, getting destroyed in the process, 3 more would maneuver to hit it from the sides or rear, where armor was thinner. Yes, the Germans might kill 2 or 3 Shermans, but the 4th or 5th would get the killing shot. It was a terrible calculus. American tank crews were being traded for German tanks, but America could afford the trade. Germany couldn't. The battle that would prove this doctrine occurred on August 8, 1944, near Mortagne, France. The 2nd SS Panzer Division attacked with 70 Panthers and Tigers, attempting to cut off the American breakout from Normandy. They ran into the 30th Infantry Division, supported by elements of the 3rd Armored Division's Shermans. Obersturmführer Ernst Barkmann commanded a Panther in that attack. A veteran of the Eastern Front with over 80 tank kills, Barkmann was confident. He saw the American Shermans ahead, perhaps 30 of them. We had the range advantage, the armor advantage, the gun advantage. It should have been a massacre. It was, just not the one Barkmann expected. The Shermans didn't stand and fight. They scattered, using hedgerows and terrain for cover. As German tanks advanced to engage, they found themselves surrounded. Shermans they'd missed in their initial count emerged from hidden positions. Tank destroyers with more powerful guns joined the fight. American artillery, coordinated by radio, began landing on German positions with terrifying accuracy. Barkmann's Panther destroyed 4 Shermans in the first 20 minutes, but for every Sherman destroyed, 2 more appeared. His ammunition began running low. A Sherman round fired from his blind spot struck his Panther's track, immobilizing it. Within minutes, concentrated fire from multiple Shermans was raining on his disabled Panther. "We abandoned the tank," he recalled. "I watched from a ditch as 5, 6, maybe 7 Shermans concentrated fire on my Panther. It was like being attacked by a pack of wolves, individually weak, but collectively overwhelming." By nightfall, the 2nd SS Panzer Division had lost 30 of its 70 tanks. The Americans lost 17 Shermans, but every Sherman destroyed was replaced by morning. The German losses? Irreplaceable.
The Sherman's greatest advantage wasn't its gun or armor, it was its reliability and the industrial system supporting it. A Sherman's mechanical breakdown rate was less than 1% per 100 miles traveled. Panthers broke down constantly. Their complex transmission failed so often that German crews joked they needed 2 Panthers for every mission, one to fight and one for parts.
More importantly, when a Sherman was damaged or destroyed, replacement tanks arrived within days. Spare parts were abundant. Repair depots operated 24 hours a day. Tank crews knew that if their Sherman was knocked out, they'd have a new one by tomorrow. Technical Sergeant Curtis Cullen from New York, the inventor of the famous Rhino hedgerow cutter, described the American advantage. "We had a saying, Germans build the best tanks, Americans build the most tanks. In the long run, most beats best every time." The numbers told the story. From June 1944 to May 1945, American factories shipped 21,048 new Sherman tanks to Europe. German industry produced 3,126 Panthers and 623 Tigers in the same period. For every German tank rolling off the production line, 7 Shermans were being loaded onto ships bound for Europe. But it wasn't just quantity. As 1944 progressed, American tankers were getting better while German tankers were getting worse. Veteran German crews, the aces who'd learned their trade in Poland, France, and Russia, were being killed faster than they could be replaced. New German tankers arrived at the front with minimal training, often less than 100 hours in a tank. American tankers, by contrast, received extensive training. By late 1944, Sherman crews arrived in Europe with 400-plus hours of training, including gunnery practice against towed targets and tactical exercises against enemy tanks. They knew their equipment intimately and understood both its strengths and weaknesses. Private First Class Smoyer from Pennsylvania arrived in Europe in September 1944 as a gunner with the 3rd Armored Division. His training had included studying German tactics, practicing coordination with other tanks, and learning weak points on German armor.
The famous combat footage shows what happened next. The Panther, focused on the Sherman to its front, never saw Smoyer's tank approach from the side street. Smoyer's first shot penetrated the Panther's thinner side armor. The German tank erupted in flames, its ammunition cooking off in spectacular explosions. "I didn't feel good about it," Smoyer later said. "There were men in that tank, men like us, but it was them or us, and we'd learned how to make sure it was them." By late 1944, improved Sherman variants were reaching Europe. The M4A3E8, Easy 8, featured better suspension, improved armor, and most importantly, a 76mm gun that could penetrate German armor more effectively at reasonable ranges. The gun still couldn't match the German 88mm, but it leveled the playing field considerably. Staff Sergeant Poole, the ace from Texas, received an Easy 8 in November 1944. "It was like upgrading from a knife to a sword," he described. "Still not as good as the German guns, but now we could hurt them from the front at closer ranges. Made a huge difference in crew confidence." But even the improved Shermans had the same vulnerability. They still burned when hit. The gasoline fuel and exposed ammunition meant that penetrating hits almost always resulted in fire. Crew survival depended on getting out fast. The drill was practiced until it became instinct. At the first indication of penetration, the distinctive clang of metal on metal, the flash of sparking metal, the crew had seconds to escape. The commander went out his hatch, the loader through his. The gunner followed the loader. The driver and bow gunner through their front hatches or the belly escape hatch. Seconds. That's all they had before the ammunition cooked off or the fuel ignited. Some crews could evacuate in under 10 seconds. For others, 10 seconds wasn't fast enough. Corporal William McVeigh, the loader who survived his first Sherman burning, described the drill. "You didn't think. Thinking gets you killed. You felt the hit, you moved. Muscle memory. I'd practiced it so many times I could do it in my sleep. That's what saved me. That and luck. The Germans called it Tommy cooking when American tanks caught fire. They developed tactics specifically to exploit this weakness, aiming for ammunition storage areas to guarantee catastrophic kills. But what terrified German tankers was not the Sherman's vulnerability. It was that no matter how many they destroyed, more kept coming.
Hauptmann Richard von Rosen commanded a Tiger Company in the Ardennes offensive of December 1944. His after-action report, captured in 1945, revealed the psychological impact of facing endless American tanks. We destroyed 14 American tanks on December 17th. By December 18th, they had 20 in the same positions. We destroyed 9 more on the 19th. On the 20th, there were 25. We are destroying them faster than we can count, yet their numbers only increase. Our tanks, once destroyed, are gone forever. This is not a battle, it is mathematics, and the mathematics doom us. The Tiger and Panther's technical superiority became meaningless when they ran out of fuel. And by late 1944, Germany's fuel situation was catastrophic. Panthers and Tigers sat immobilized, not from combat damage, but from empty fuel tanks. Some were abandoned, others were destroyed by their own crews to prevent capture. American Shermans, by contrast, never lacked fuel. The famous Red Ball Express, operated primarily by African-American truck drivers, delivered 400,000 gallons of fuel daily to advancing American forces. Every Sherman could count on refueling whenever needed. The Battle of Aricourt in September 1944 demonstrated this advantage perfectly. The 4th Armored Division's Shermans faced the 5th Panzer Army's Panthers in what should have been a one-sided battle. The Panthers had every technical advantage, but the Germans were short on fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. Their Panthers broke down frequently. When damaged, they had to be abandoned because recovery vehicles lacked fuel. American Shermans, meanwhile, were supported by a logistics system that delivered everything needed when needed. The Americans destroyed over 200 German tanks while losing 25 Shermans. Every lost Sherman was replaced within 48 hours. The German losses? Catastrophic and irreplaceable. Oberstleutnant Johann Wengert, who commanded Panthers at Aricourt, wrote in his diary, "We have the best tanks in the world, rendered useless by lack of fuel. The Americans have inferior tanks, but they have everything: fuel, ammunition, spare parts, replacements. They can afford to lose. We cannot afford even to win, because victory costs us tanks we cannot replace." By March 1945, as Allied forces crossed the Rhine and pushed into Germany, German tank forces existed largely on paper. The Panthers and Tigers that had terrorized Allied tankers in 1944 were gone, destroyed not just in combat, but by abandonment when fuel ran out. American Sherman formations, meanwhile, rolled through Germany, virtually unopposed, not because German anti-tank defenses had disappeared, but because German defenders had nothing left to stop them with. The famous photograph of American tanks crossing the Remagen Bridge shows a column of Shermans stretching back beyond the horizon. That single image captures the American advantage more than any combat report could. Not just the bridge captured by luck, but the endless stream of armor that could exploit that luck. Final production numbers tell the story of industrial annihilation. Sherman tanks produced 49,234. Panther tanks produced 6,000. Tiger I tanks produced 1,347. Tiger II tanks produced 492. For every Tiger that rolled off German production lines, 36 Shermans were completed in American factories. The Germans could build better tanks. Americans built an avalanche. In 1979, at a reunion of American and German tank veterans in Fort Knox, Kentucky, former enemies met in peace. Oberstlieutenant Odo Carius, a German tank ace credited with destroying over 150 enemy tanks, was asked about facing Shermans.
His response was recorded on video and is preserved at the Patton Museum. The Sherman was not a bad tank. It was an adequate tank. But adequate multiplied by 50,000 defeats excellent multiplied by 6,000. This is mathematics, not opinion. We laughed at them in 1944, called them Tommy cookers, easy kills, and individually they were. I destroyed many Shermans. Every German tanker did. But for every one we destroyed, 3 more appeared, then 5 more, then 10 more. It was like fighting the ocean. You could win every wave and still drown. The American tankers were brave, make no mistake. They knew their tanks were inferior. They knew they would probably burn if hit. Yet they climbed in every morning. That takes courage we Germans respected, even as we destroyed them. But what defeated us wasn't their courage. It was their industry. America could build Shermans faster than we could destroy them. And eventually, they buried us under a mountain of steel. Technical superiority means nothing when you run out of tanks and your enemy has thousands more. Staff Sergeant Lafayette Poole, the Sherman ace from Texas, survived until September 1944, when his tank finally met its end near Stolberg, Germany. He destroyed 12 German tanks and countless other vehicles. A German shell penetrated in the mood, and Poole barely escaped before it burned. He survived, but lost a leg.
Asked after the war about facing superior German tanks, Poole's response was typically American. Sure, they had better tanks. So what? We had more tanks. We had better logistics. We had replacements. We had spare parts. We had everything we needed to keep fighting. And yeah, a lot of guys died. A lot of Shermans burned. But we kept coming. That's what wins wars. Not having the best weapon, but having enough weapons and the will to use them. Every morning, I'd pat in the mood's armor and say a prayer. Not that we wouldn't get hit. We'd been hit plenty of times. But that if we got hit again, I'd get my crew out alive. That's what it came down to. Not killing German tanks, though we did plenty of that, but bringing my boys home. And the Sherman, for all its flaws, usually gave us that chance. You could survive being hit in a Sherman if you were fast and lucky. And that's more than you could say for a lot of tanks. The final accounting of the Sherman's contribution defies the narrative of technical inferiority. 49,234 Shermans produced, served in every theater of World War II, remained in service with various armies until the 1990s. Battle of Aracourt, a 7-to-1 kill ratio against Panthers. Overall European theater, 3.6 German tanks destroyed per Sherman lost. But these numbers don't capture the real story. The real story is 5-man crews who climbed into machines they called death traps and Ronsons, knowing the statistics, knowing their tanks were outgunned and out-armored. Men who developed tactics to overcome technical inferiority. Crews who used speed, coordination, and numbers to defeat enemies with better equipment. The Sherman wasn't the best tank of World War II. That honor probably belongs to the German Panther or Soviet T-34. But the Sherman was good enough. And when good enough is produced by the tens of thousands, backed by overwhelming logistics, operated by well-trained crews, and supported by industrial might that can replace losses faster than the enemy can inflict them, good enough becomes unstoppable. German tankers laughed at American Shermans in 1944. By 1945, there were no German tankers left to laugh. They'd been buried under an avalanche of American steel. The Sherman had the last word, and that word was thunder.